You must go to town and see that rich brother.
Of yours.
He will surely not refuse you.
He
will not surely refuse to give you a little help.
Give you a little help.
You sound French and Russian right there. A little help. You said French and Russian right there.
Okay, let me try it.
Go for it.
You must go to town and see that rich brother of yours. You know I can't roll my R's. I'm trying. Brother of yours. He will surely not refuse to give you a little help. Except I'm supposed to be a girl. Yikes.
Refuse.
I'm dying a little.
Refuse.
You can do this every episode.
Roll your R's.
I can't.
Roll them.
That is the sound you can't do.
You can't be Russian
I
without rolling
you
your
chose
R's.
Russian accents. It's no worse. The Spanish one we did ages ago. Talk about awful for me
Practice. It's not live.
to It is. I've recorded.
Just gotta remember, you can't say
Spain
that
came down.
H's, so or
What
the
came
thes. You
down?
can't say thes.
Spain.
Oh, that. Yeah. You must go to town.
You're not angry enough.
You must go to town and see that rich brother of yours.
Brother.
Brother.
Brazil. You don't. The th is z's.
No THs.
Is the z's. Brazil.
You can't do that for the entire thing.
Bruiser.
Browsers.
Brother.
You got to go see that boozer.
Bruiser.
We got to see that boozer of yours.
Z.
Brother. Brother.
Z will surely
No.
not refuse.
He.
There's no
He.
H.
There is an H. There's no TH. He.
Oh, I'm taking a picture of myself, not you.
He's ready to record.
Oh no, I just recorded the video of you two going back and forth, and I'm just saying, I just smacked the mic.
Okay, let's do this.
Yeah, I gotta take off my roach.
You guys ready?
Because I'm hot. Because I'm hot.
Ready.
Ready?
Oh, it's gonna be a disaster, but
No,
fun.
it's going to be fantastic.
It's gonna be great.
It's going to be a lot of fun.
Hey everybody, welcome to story episode number 11, Uncut.
Are you recording again?
She's been recording the whole time.
Oh my god.
Yes. That's what we argued about for 20 minutes in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting here doing this with my phone, and I'm getting, oh man. Good Lord.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Welcome to story episode 11.
Uncut.
Dun, dun, dun.
Uncut.
Special guest today, Justin. Cousin's back for another episode.
Yeah.
We saw him back on episode 26.
Yes. And
That was
on
me.
ANX Gamecast.
Yes, you did.
Yes.
At some
I'm
point.
everywhere. Can't get rid of me.
Yep. He's all over the place. Today we're talking about the Little Master Misery.
Litter Master Misery.
Little
Little Master Misery collected by Arthur Ransome. Ransome.
What if you ever had a ransom on him?
Me? Never. This is a Russian fairy tale. Ready to
A little thirsty, huh?
crack.
No, I'm not a little thirsty since apparently everyone saw me down that drink.
Mm-mm.
Oh, you weren't recording that?
No.
Okay. Well, now that everybody got to explain myself.
But
So a
you-
few minutes ago, my cousin over here made me down a drink just to start a new drink.
The drinking obsession has come from Clairissa and I used to drink on all of our episodes, and it was very obvious that we were drinking on all of our episodes, so we reined
Obviously.
that in
Yes.
and kind of stopped drinking. And then the other, I don't know, couple episodes ago,
Yeah.
I had some wine, and we have audio issues with me because I am soft-spoken.
She is.
And so the mic won't always pick up my voice. However, when I had 2 glasses of wine, that problem goes away.
Completely.
I am now required to drink on all episodes.
So that way you're loud.
So that I speak up, and
Not so soft.
you clearly have the same requirement.
No, this just loosens me up so I'm not so shy.
Yes, but Clairissa being the only one that's not drinking because she is not soft-spoken, nor is she shy. She doesn't have to drink, but the rest of us do.
I don't always need liquid courage, but when I do,
I
need it.
That was
know.
anticlimactic.
Yeah, it was. I couldn't come up with anything
Insert the
funnier.
dramatic music.
Dun, dun, dun.
Okay, let's get started on Little Master Misery.
Well, real quick, Justin, where can everybody find you? He's a gamer on
Again, you can find me on Twitch. Twitch.tv/Bahama06.
Yep. Yeah, I believe we're ready.
Let's do it.
I'm ready.
Everybody got a drink?
Yep.
All right.
Once upon a time, there were 2 brothers, peasants, and one was kind and the other was cunning. And the cunning one made money and became rich, very rich, so rich that he thought himself far too good for the village. He went off to the town and dressed in fine furs and clothed his wife in rich brocades and made friends among the merchants and began to live as merchants live, eating all day long, no longer like a simple peasant who eats kasha one day, kasha the next day, and for a change, kasha on the 3rd day also. And always he grew richer and richer. Excuse me. It was very different with the kind one. He lent money to a neighbor, and the neighbor never paid it back. He sowed before the last frost and lost all his crops. His horse went lame. His cow gave no milk. If his hens laid eggs, they were stolen. And if he set a night line in the river, someone else always pulled it out and stole the fish and the hooks. Everything went wrong with him, and each day saw him poorer than the day before. At last, there came a time when he had not a crumb of bread in the house. He and his wife were thin as sticks because they had nothing to eat, and the children were crying all day long because of their little empty stomachs. From morning till night he dug and worked, struggling against poverty like a fish against the ice. But it was no good. Things went from bad to worse. At last, his wife said to him,
You must go to town. You must go to town and see that rich brother of yours. He will surely not refuse to give you a little help.
and he said,
Truly, wife, there's nothing else to be done. I will go to town and perhaps my rich brother will help me. I am sure he would not let my children starve. After all, he is their uncle.
So he took his stick and tramped off to the town. He came to the house of his rich brother. A fine house it was, with painted eaves and a doorway carved by a master. Many servants were there and food in plenty, and people coming and going. He went in and found his brother and said,
Dear brother of mine, I beg you help me, even if only a little. My wife and children are without bread. All day long they sit hungry and waiting, and I have no food to give them.
The rich brother looks at him and hums and strokes his beard. Then says he,
I will help you, but of course you must do something for me in return. Stay here and work for me, and at the end of the week you shall have help. And at the end of the week you shall have the help you have earned.
The poor brother thanked him and bowed and kissed his hand and praised God for the kindness of his brother's heart, and set instantly to work. For a whole week he slaved and scarcely slept. He cleaned out the stables and cut the wood, swept the yard, drew water from the well, and ran errands for the cook. And at the end of the week his brother called him and gave him a single loaf of bread.
You must not forget,
Says the rich brother,
that I have fed you all this week you have been here, and all the food counts in the payment.
The poor brother thanked him and was set off to carry the loaf to his wife and children when the rich brother called him back.
Stop 1 minute,
said he.
I would like you to know that I am well disposed towards you. Tomorrow is my name day. Come to the feast and bring your wife with you.
It's also you.
Lord.
It's just
That
a
is
short
also
little
you.
part in the beginning that you have to talk to yourself.
Zat.
I'm talking to myself.
This is when it's not crazy and completely acceptable.
It looks crazy now. Okay. How can I do that, brother? I just sounded French right there.
No, that was good.
It's okay.
Okay. How can I do that, brother? Your friends are rich merchants with fine clothes and boots on their feet. And I have nothing but old coat. And my legs are bound in rags and my feet shuffle along in straw slippers. I do not want the shame of you before your guests.
Do not want to shame you.
I do not want to shame you before your guests.
There you
I
go.
can't read today.
It's okay.
Never mind about that.
Says the rich brother.
We will find a place for you. Very good, brother. And thank you. Sorry. Very good, brother. And thank you so kindly. God be praised for having given you a tender heart.
And the poor brother, though he was tired after all the work he had done, set off home as fast as he could to take the bread to his wife and children.
He might have given you more than that,
said his wife.
But listen,
said he.
What do you think of this? Tomorrow we are invited, you and I, as guests, to go to a great feast.
What do you mean? A feast? Who has invited us?
My brother has invited us. Tomorrow is his name day. Oh, I always told you he had a kind heart. We shall be well fed, and I dare say we shall be able to bring back something for our children.
A pleasure like that does not often come our way,
said his wife. So early in the morning they got up and walked all the way to town, so as not to shame the rich brother by putting up their old cart in the yard beside the merchant's fine carriages. They came to the rich brother's house and found the guests all assembled and making merry, rich merchants and their plump wives, all eating and laughing and drinking and talking. They wished a long life to the rich brother, and the poor brother wanted to make a speech, congratulating him on his name day. But the rich brother scarcely thanked him, because he was so busy entertaining the rich merchants and their plump, laughing wives. He was pressing food on his guests, now this, now that, and calling to the servants to keep their glasses filled and their plates full of all the tastiest kinds of foods. As for the poor brother and his wife, the rich one forgot all about them, and they got nothing to eat and never a drop to drink. They just sat there with empty plates and empty glasses, watching how the others ate and drank. The poor brother laughed with the rest because he did not wish to show that he had been forgotten. The dinner came to an end. One by one the guests went up to the giver of the feast to thank him for his good cheer, and the poor brother too got up from the bench and bowed low before his brother and thanked him. The guests went home, drunken and joyful. A fine noise they made, as people do on these occasions, shouting jokes to each other and singing songs at the top of their voices. The poor brother and his wife went home empty and sad. All that long way they had walked, and now they had to walk it again, and the feast was over, and never a bite had they had in their mouths, nor a drop in their gullets.
Come, wife,
said the poor brother as he trudged along.
let us sing along like the others.
What a fool you are,
says his wife. Hungry and cross she was, even as Marussia, who would be after a day like that watching other people stuff themselves.
What a fool you are,
says she.
People may very well sing when they have eaten tasty dishes and drunk good wine. But what reason have you got for making a merry noise in this night?
Why, my dear?
Says he.
We have been at my brother's name day feast. I am ashamed to go home without a song. I'll sing. I'll sing so that everyone shall think he loaded us with good things like the rest.
Well, sing if you like. But you've... But... Well, sing if you like. But you sing by yourself.
So the peasant, the poor brother, started singing a song with his dry throat. He lifted his voice and sang like the rest while the wife trudged silently beside him. But as he sang, it seemed to the peasant that he heard two voices singing, his own and another's. He stopped and asked his wife,
Sing.
I'm supposed to sing this right
no,
now?
this is... He
Don't
stopped,
tease
Go
that
along
to
with the joke.
Okay.
You didn't see his eyes.
he stopped and asked his wife,
Is that you joining in my song with a little thin voice?
What's the matter with you? Was that words?
kind of.
What's the matter with you? I never thought of singing with you. I never opened my mouth.
Who is it then?
No one except yourself. Anyone would say you had a drink of wine after all.
But I heard someone, a little weak voice, a little sad voice, joining with mine.
I heard nothing.
Said his wife.
But sing again, and I'll listen.
The poor man sang again. He sang alone. His wife listened, and it was clear that there were two voices singing. The dry voice of the poor man, and a little miserable voice that came from the shadows under the trees. The poor man stopped and asked out loud,
Who are you? Who are singing with me?
and a thin little voice answered out of the shadows by the roadside, under the trees.
Let me summon my small voice.
Miserable voice.
Tiny misery.
I am misery. Hear me roar.
Hold on.
Hear me.
Am I male or female?
Yeah, male, but you're Russian, so you're angrier.
I am misery.
That'll work.
Does it work? A whisper? I hope it's loud enough.
I don't know about a whisper, but
Let me try it
like-
again. I am misery.
Is that what you're going with?
I don't know. Somebody tell me yes or
That
no.
was a
do
little
it.
thin voice. I don't think it needs to be like.
Quiet doesn't mean
You
thin.
don't need ASMR.
I am misery.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay.
That's good. Okay. Are you gonna do it again, or
Yeah. I am misery.
So it was you, Misery, who were helping me.
Yes, master. I was helping you.
Well, little Master Misery, come along with us and keep us company.
I'll do that willingly.
says little Master Misery?
And I'll never leave you at all. No. Not if you have no other friend in the world.
And a wretched little man with a miserable face and little thin legs and arms came out of the shadows and went home with the peasant and his wife. We can't see your hands, just so you know. She's like,
Thank you for helping me out.
but you don't know her hands are like this.
Yeah.
So you can't see them. It was late when they got home, but little Master Misery asked the peasant to take him to the tavern.
After such a day as this has been,
Says he.
there's nothing else to be done.
But I have no money.
Says the peasant.
What of that?
Says little Master Misery.
Spring has begun, and you have a winter jacket on. It will soon be summer, and whether you have it or not, you won't wear it again. Bring it along to the tavern and change it for a drink.
The poor man went to the tavern with little Master Misery, and they sat there and drank the vodka that the tavern keeper gave them in exchange for the coat. Next day, early in the morning, little Master Misery began complaining. His head ached, and he could not open his eyes, and he did not like the weather. and the children were crying, and there was no food in the house, he asked the peasant to come with him to the tavern again and forget all his wretchedness in a drink.
But I've got no money.
Rubbish!
Says Little Master Misery.
You have a sledge and a cat.
They took the cart and the sledge to the tavern and stayed there drinking until the tavern keeper said they had had all that the cart and sledge were worth. Then the tavern keeper took them and threw them out of doors into the night, and they picked themselves up and crawled home. Next day, Misery complained worse than before, and begged the peasant to come with him to the tavern. There was no getting rid of him, no keeping him quiet. The peasant sold his barrow and plow, so they could no longer work his land. He went to the tavern with Little Master Misery. A month went by like that, and at the end of it, the peasant had nothing left at all. He had even pledged the hut he lived in to a neighbor and taken the money to the tavern. And every day, Little Master Misery begged him to come.
There I am not wretched any longer,
Says Misery.
there I sing and even dance, hitting the floor with my heels and making a merry noise.
But now I have no money at all, and nothing left to sell.
Says the poor peasant.
I'd be willing enough to go with you, but I can't. And here is an end to. Oh my gosh! And here is an end, all of it. Oh, I don't know. I said all. And here is an end of it.
Nice. Rubbish!
Says Misery.
Your wife has 2 dresses. Leave her one. She can't wear both at once. Leave her one and buy a drink with the other. They are both ragged, but take the better of the 2. The tavern keeper is just a man and will be giving us more drink for the better one.
The peasant took the dress and sold it, and Misery laughed and danced while the peasant thought to himself.
Well,
You're thoughtful.
well, this is the end. I've nothing left to sell, and my wife has nothing either. We've the clothes on our backs, and nothing else in the world.
In the morning, Little Master Misery woke with a headache as usual, and a mouthful of groans and complaints. But he saw that the peasant had nothing left to sell, and he called out,
Listen to me, master of the house.
What is it, Misery?
says the peasant, who is mastered of nothing in the world.
Go to your neighbor. That went French. Go to your neighbor. No, that
Just
went
as
French
French.
again.
Go you to a neighbor.
Go you to a neighbor and beg the loan of the cat and the pair of good oxen.
The poor peasant had no will of his own left. He did exactly as he was told. He went to his neighbor and begged the loan of the oxen and cart.
But how will you repay me?
Says the neighbor.
I had to change my voice.
Sorry. I was trying to stay composed right there. I just couldn't.
Very angry.
Oh my gosh. Well, how will you pay me? I will do a week's work of. These V's.
V.
I will do a week's work for you. Oh my gosh.
For you for nothing.
I will do a week's work for you for nothing.
Very well.
Says the neighbor.
Take the oxen and the cart, but be very careful not to give them too heavy a load.
Indeed, I won't.
Says the peasant, thinking to himself that he had nothing to load them with.
And thank you very much.
Says he, and he goes back to Misery, taking with him the oxen and cart. Misery looked at him and grumbled in his wretched little voice.
They are hardly strong enough.
They are the best I could borrow.
Says the peasant.
And you and I have starved too long to be heavy.
And the peasant and the little Master Misery sat together in the cart and drove off together. Misery holding his head in both hands and groaning at the jolt of the cart. As soon as they had left the village, Misery sat up and asked the peasant,
Back. Do you know the big stone that stands alone in the middle of the field, not far from here?
Of course I know of it.
says the peasant.
Drive straight to it.
Says Misery, and went on rocking himself to and fro and groaning and complaining in his wretched little voice. They came to the stone and got down from
Say it
the
again,
cart.
I'm sorry.
She's gonna kill you.
I'm having fun.
You do know we have a whole other episode to record. They came to the stone and got down from the cart and looked at the stone. It was very big and heavy and was fixed in the ground.
Give it up,
says Misery. The poor peasant set to work to heave it up, and Misery helped him, groaning and complaining that the peasant was nothing of a fellow because he could not do his work by himself. Well, they heaved it up, and there below it was a deep hole. And the hole was filled with gold pieces to the very top. More gold pieces than ever you will see copper ones if you live to be 110.
Well, what are you staring at?
Says Misery.
Stare yourself. And be quick about it. Load all this gold into the cart.
The peasant set to work and piled all the gold into the cart down to the very last gold piece, while Misery sat on the stone and watched, groaning and chuckling in his weak, wretched little voice.
Be quick,
Says Misery.
and then we can get back to the tavern.
The peasant looked into the pit to see that there was nothing left there, and then, says he,
Just look, just take a look, little Master Misery, and see what I have left nothing behind. You are smaller than I, and can get right down into the pit.
Misery slipped down from the stone, grumbling at the peasant, and bent over the pit.
You've taken a lot.
Says he,
You've taken the lot.
says he.
There's nothing to be seen.
But what is that?
Says the peasant.
There, shining in that corner.
I don't see it.
Jump down into the pit, and you'll see it. It would be a pity to waste a gold piece.
Misery jumped down into the pit, and instantly the peasant rolled the stone over the hole and shut him in.
Things will be better so.
Says the peasant.
If I were to let you out of that, sooner or later you would drink up all this money, just as you drank up everything I had.
Then the peasant drove home and hid the gold in the cellar, took the oxen and cart back to his neighbor, thanked him kindly, and began to think what he would do, now that Misery was his master no longer, and he with plenty of money.
Who's Vanya?
You. It's the couple of one-liners.
Oh, okay. Wait to pay the loan. But he had to work for a week to pay the loan for the oxen and cart.
Said Vanya.
Old Peter, grumbly. Got a grumble?
It's like the two people who are telling the story.
Oh. Well, during the week, while he was working, he was thinking all the time in his head.
Said old Peter, a little grumpily. Then he went on with his tale. As soon as the week was over, he bought a forest and built himself a fine house, and began to live twice as richly as his brother in the town. And his wife had 2 new dresses, perhaps more, with a lot of gold and silver braid, and necklaces of big yellow stones, and bracelets and sparkling rings. His children were all fed every day, rivers of milk between banks of kissel jelly and mushrooms with sauce and soup and cakes with little balls of egg and meat hidden in the middle. And they had toys that squeaked, and little boy feeding a goose that poked its head into a dish, and a painted hen with a lot of chickens that all squeaked together. Time went on, and when his name day drew near, he thought of his brother, the merchant, and drove off to the town to invite him to take part in the feast.
I have not forgotten, brother, that you invited me to yours. What a fellow you are.
Says his brother.
You have nothing to eat yourself, and here you are inviting other people for your name day. Yes,
said the peasant.
once upon a time, it is true, I have nothing to eat. But now, praise be to God, I am no poorer than yourself. Come to my name day feast and you will see. Very well,
says his brother.
I'll come, but don't think you can play any jokes on me.
On the morning of the peasant's name day, his brother, the merchant in the town, put on his best clothes and his plump wife dressed in all her richest, and they got into their cart. A fine cart it was, too, painted in the brightest colors, and off they drove together to the house of the brother who had once been poor. They took a basket of food with them, in case he had only been joking when he invited them to his name day feast. They drove to the village and asked for him at the hut where he used to be. An old man hobbling along the road answered them.
Oh, you mean our Ivan Ilyich?
Ivan Ilyich.
Ilyich?
Ilyich.
Oh, you mean our Ivan Ilyich? Ilyich?
Ilyich.
Ilyich?
Well, he does not live here any longer. That's you. Don't know why it's not highlighted. Just keep going.
The whole thing?
Yep.
Well, oh, you mean our Ivan Ilyich? Well, he does not live here any longer. Where have you been that you have not heard? Is the big new house on the hill. You can see it through the trees over there. Where all these people are walking. He has a kind heart, and riches have not spoiled it. He has invited the whole world to the village to feast with him, because today is his name day.
You just said the whole
Yes,
world.
she makes words up.
He has invited the whole world, the whole village to the feast.
Oh, thank you for noticing.
I just roll with it. It happens a lot.
Well, you got me here. I'm gonna find it.
Whole world.
He just invited the whole world plus the village
Yes.
to his new house on the hill.
Okay. He has invited the whole village to his feast. It's close enough, right?
No.
Dang it.
He invited the whole village to feast with him.
Oh.
Because today is his name day.
He has invited the whole village to feast with him. Because today is his name day.
Riches.
Thought the merchant.
A new house.
He was very much surprised, but as he drove along the road, he was more surprised still. For he passed all the villagers on their way to the feast. And everyone was talking of his brother, and how kind he was, and how generous, and what a feast there was going to be, and how many barrels of mead and wine had been taken up to the house, while the folk were hurrying along the road, licking their lips, each one going faster than the other so as to be sure not to miss any of the good things. The rich brother from the town drove with his wife into the courtyard of the fine new house, and there on the steps was the peasant brother, Ivan Ilyich, and his wife, receiving their guests. And if the rich brother was well dressed, the peasant was better dressed. And if the rich brother's wife was in her fine clothes, the peasant's wife fairly glittered. What with the gold braid on her bosom and the shining silver in her hair.
Is the peasants he's referring to the poor brother? And
The poor
wife?
brother that's now dressed better than both of them.
Ah. I thought he meant like all the villager peasants.
The poor brother and his wife were receiving guests, and they look better than they do. And the peasant brother kissed his brother from the town on both cheeks, and gave him and his wife the best places at the table. He fed them. Ah, how he fed them! With little red slips of smoked salmon, and beetroot soup with cream, and slabs of sturgeon, and meats of 3 or 4 kinds, and game and sweetmeats of the best. There never was such a feast. No, not even at the wedding of a czar. And as for drink, there were red wine and white wine, and beer and mead in great barrels, and everywhere the peasant went about among his guests, filling glasses and seeing that their plates were kept piled with foods each one liked best. And the rich brother wondered and wondered, and at last he could wait no longer, and he took his brother aside and said,
I am delighted to see you so rich, but tell me, I beg you, how was that all this good fortune came to you?
The poor brother, never thinking, told him all, the whole truth about little Master Misery and the pit full of gold, and how Misery was shut in there under the big stone. The merchant brother listened and did not forget a word. He could hardly bear himself for envy, and as for his wife, she was worse. She looked at the peasant's wife with her beautiful headdress, and she bit her lips till they bled. As soon as they could, they said goodbye and drove off home. The merchant brother could not bear the thought that his brother was richer than he. He said to himself,
I will go to the field. I will move the stone. I will let Master Misery out. Then he will go and tear my brother to pieces for shutting him in, and his riches will not be of much use to him then, even if Misery does not give them to me as a token of gratitude. Think of my brother daring to show off his riches to me.
So he drove off to the field and came at last to the big stone. He moved the stone on one side and then bent over the pit to see what was in it. He had scarcely put his head over the edge before Misery sprung up out of the pit, seated himself firmly on his shoulders, squeezed his neck between his little wiry legs, and pulled out handfuls of his hair.
Scream away,
cried little Master Misery.
You tried to kill me, shutting me up in here. While you windows in both fine clothes. You tried to kill me, and came to feast your eyes on my corpse. Now, whatever happens, I'll never leave you again.
Listen, Misery,
screamed the merchant.
Pulling your hair.
Aye, stop pulling my hair.
Stop pulling my hair.
But you have to do it again, because I was definitely
I know.
talking.
I was just practicing.
Practice.
Okay. Stop pulling my hair. You are choking me. Listen. It was not I who shut you in under the stone.
Who was it if it was not you?
Asked Misery, tugging out his hair and digging his knees into the merchant's throat.
It was my brother. I just sounded totally French right there.
So did I.
It was totally my brother. Paris. It was my brother. I cannot stop sounding French.
It was my bruiser. Bruiser.
Why are you saying hit?
I don't know.
It was my brother. I came here on purpose to let you out. I came out of pity.
Misery tugged the merchant's hair and twisted the merchant's ears so they nearly came off.
Daya!
He shouted in his little wretched, angry voice.
You tried to dick me once. Do you think you'll get the better of me again by a clumsy lie of that kind? Now then, get up! Home we go.
And so the rich brother went trotting home, crying with pain, while little Master Misery sat firmly on his shoulders, pulling his hair. Instantly, Misery was at his old tricks.
You seem to have bought a good deal with the gold,
he said, looking at the merchant's house. We'll see
how far it will go.
I laughed through it too.
Yeah, so she was laughing.
We'll see how far it will go.
And every day he rode the rich merchant to the tavern and made him drink up all his money, and his house, his clothes, his horses and carts and sledges, everything he had, until he was as poor as his brother had been in the beginning. The merchant thought and puzzled his brain to find a way to get rid of him. And at last, one night, when Misery had groaned himself to sleep, the merchant went out into the yard and took a big cartwheel and made 2 stout wedges of wood, just big enough to fit into the hub of the wheel. He drove one wedge firmly in at one end of the hub, and left the wheel in the yard with the other wedge and a big hammer lying handy close to it. In the morning, Misery wakes up as usual and cries out to be taken to the tavern.
We've sold everything we've got,
Says the merchant.
Well, what are you going to do to amuse me?
says Misery.
Let's play hide and seek in the yard.
Says the merchant.
Right.
Says Misery.
Right.
Says Misery.
But you'll never find me. For I can make myself so small I can hide in a mouse hole in the floor.
We'll see.
Says the merchant. The merchant hid first, and Misery found him at once.
Now it's my turn.
Says Misery.
But what good? But what's the good? You'll never find me. Why could I get inside of the hub of that wheel if I had mind to?
What a liar you are.
Says the merchant.
You could never fit into that little hole.
Look!
Says Misery, and he made himself little, and sat on the hub of the wheel.
Look!
Says he, making himself smaller again, and then, poof, in he pops into the hole of the hub. Instantly, the merchant took the other wedge and the hammer and drove the wedge into the hole. The first wedge had closed up the other end, and so there was Misery shut up inside the hub of the cart wheel. The merchant set the wheel on his shoulders and took it to the river and threw it out as far as he could, and it went floating away down to the sea. Then he went home and set to work to make money again and earn his daily bread, for Misery had made him so poor that he had nothing left, and had to hire himself out to make a living, just as his peasant brother used to do. What happened to Misery when he went floating away? He floated away down the river, shut up in the hub of the wheel. He ought to have starved there, but I am afraid some silly, greedy fellow thought to get a new wheel for nothing, and pulled the wedges out and let him go. For, by all I hear, Misery is still wandering about the world and making people wretched. Bad luck to him.
Interesting.
That was messed up.
I know. The whole beginning of that story, I was just sad.
Because the poor brother?
He's so poor and hungry and sad.
He went to his
Cold.
brother. His brother invited him, and his brother didn't feed him.
Yeah, his brother's a total jerk face.
His brother got what he deserved.
Yeah, he did. Mm-hmm. Now how's he going to go? How's he going to get rich again? Dig up some other
He did
stone
it the
with
first
gold?
time.
He's even said it right there. He's
Very
gonna have
resourceful.
It's true.
Work-
Without Misery
He's just
nagging.
gonna have to work at it and get it back again.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So typically this is where we ask people what they thought the moral was.
Not be greedy. Be more helpful to your family.
Don't be greedy. Be nice to others.
Yeah, be helpful.
Golden rule.
Yes, for sure. Treat others as you would like to be treated.
Exactly.
Except even like the poor brother, when he got wealthy, he still trusted his brother completely and was so happy to have him. He gave away all of his terrible secrets. I'm glad it didn't come bite the brother in the butt, because the one story we did with Paul a while back, it did not end so happily.
No, it did not.
Shockingly so.
What's a twist?
So karma still.
Yeah, karma for sure.
Where's that karma?
It's always popping its little head back up.
Mm-hmm.
AKA misery.
Okay, yeah.
And don't keep company with Misery.
Mm-hmm.
Like, really, who would want to? My name's Misery. Oh, come be my friend.
And I'll call you Master. Like, I instantly recognized that you were going to be the boss of me.
Yeah, you're a little imp. You're gonna be my master.
Right.
So if you meet a tiny, grumpy little man on the road and he says his
That's
name is
apparently
Misery.
It's apparently he's an alcoholic too, because he kept going to the
Clearly,
tavern.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you can't take me to the tavern? Go sell your stuff and then take me.
Don't go to the tavern with people who don't have their own money.
Right.
Yep.
And look at like, oh, lost the thought. Gone. Just like that.
Gone with the
Yep.
wind.
Gone away.
So I think we've learned our lesson.
Yep. I feel,
Bad
educated.
association spells useful habits.
ooh.
Don't wallow in misery.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Thanks for listening, guys.
Yes, thank you.
Story episode 11, Little Master Misery.
With our friend Justin.
Yep.
That's me.
You can find him on
Twitch.tv/Bahama06.
Bahama06.
Or on Instagram.
Or on Insta.
Go check him out.
Yep, for sure.
If you're looking for us.
You can find us at royalmalarkey.com, or you can check out our
Twitter,
Instagram,
Facebook.
and if you're watching the uncut version on YouTube at Aversion TV, our podcast network.
Please hit the subscribe and like button and leave us a comment below.
And punch that notification bell.
Yep. And hit the like button because you liked the episode.
If you're an avid podcast listener, please rate and review us on iTunes.
Mm-hmm. We'd also love that too.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, guys.
We'll see you next month.
Toodles.
Bye.
Toodaloo.